This is a test of the Boundary Park alert system.
Hello and welcome to the Boundary Park alert system with me, Matt Dean, and Andy Halliwell. Andy, I think you're going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this particular episode of the podcast. I'm in my dressing gown in bed, feeling a little bit worse for wear. Our fan guest looks worse than I feel, which is not a good sign. Andy, you look pretty happy, smiley, and on it. So you do the business with the fan guest, please.
First, when was your first game? Half awake fan guest.
Millwall at home. I think it was about year 2000. We won 2-1. I think Steve Whitehall scored late on to win it. I think Mark Allett might have scored the first, possibly.
Right, I think there'll be fans of the phone-in listening, going, "I know that voice, but let's carry on."
Well, he's also, we should say, he's here with no shirt on, which is
standard.
Favourite Latics-related memory?
I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball in here, and I'm going to say, well, it's usually everyone says like either a playoff, don't they, or Liverpool at home, Fulham away, maybe. I'm going to say Torquay away last season, just because of the feel good factor that everybody had, and it was a little bit of a like a personal good week, if you know what I mean. Like, I'd been in Cornwall the week before with a family, so it was just everything that led up to it were really good. You know, the takeover, just how positive everything was, and then obviously we soon were thumped back down to earth, weren't we? But that's sort of standard behaviour as a Latics fan, isn't it?
Well, favourite Latics-related memory, I don't think 0-0 away at Torquay in the 5th Division has been anyone else's pick so far, but I understand the sentiment anyway. Who was your first favourite player?
I'm just going to follow the crowd here. Really, it was probably David Ayres. He's the first one I can remember that really stood out. John Sheridan, really, as well. Two standard picks, aren't they? Really.
If your first game was in the year 2000, then that's the era, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
And then a little unknown fact about yourself, a little unknown fact about yourself, something that people don't know. When everyone's guessed who you are, it's the captain, it's Terry Whaley. But,
not really. I was once an England under-19s international.
At what?
Rugby league.
Oh, were you? Who did you play for?
I played for a couple of clubs in the field, but the ones that like when I played for them, I played for Saddleworth Rangers for I don't know, 20 years ish.
You didn't play for Ruffians then?
No, not Ruffians. No.
You've definitely got a roughy head on you this morning, Tez.
Absolutely.
Right, shall I start talking about the game then while you two just sit there and listen?
Well, my breakfast has just arrived in a bag, which is fantastic. So I'm going to get stuck into that. I've got a coffee now, so that's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for that. And you know what? Actually, yesterday, I definitely would have been there yesterday, but for the fact that it was like my annual mates get together, and you know, my mate Helen's over from Singapore and things like that. So it was one of those that you couldn't really miss. But it was, I was keeping an eye on it, obviously, and I was like, at half time, I was like, well, it looks like I'm not missing out on too much. But it's by the end of it, I was absolutely gutted not to be there, and I've been catching up on it this morning. Tell us what it was like, Andy.
Well, I mean, Mickey Mellon's post-match interview is absolutely spot on. It's great to hear him review it in exactly the same way as everybody saw it. That first half was appalling, dreadful. We didn't get out enough. We just sat back. We didn't press. We didn't really cause many trouble at all. And that number 10 of theirs who scored their penalty just ran the game in the first half. Everything went through him. He had time to turn and run at us, and yeah, it was really poor. There was little movement, up front. So the centre halves were like pinging 40-yard diagonal passes that straight out of play. Raglan looked all over the show. It was a really bad performance. And you're just rolling your eyes. There's a nice little bar in the corner of the away end. You can get in, get yourself a little seat and have a couple of pints. So I did that before and after the game. I've got to say, thanks to Joe Payne, because he bought me a pint at half time. I didn't get the lad's name who bought me a pint before the game, but I appreciate that as well. So thanks to those two lads. But everybody in the bar was just at half time was saying how dreadful it was. To a man and woman, it was just not good enough. So you sort of, I went out to the second half 5 minutes late, thinking I'm going to take my time with the drink. I can't be bothered. So I went back into my seats, and then within 5 minutes of being in my seats, we'd scored, been like 5 minutes, scored 2 goals in 2 minutes, and we were bossing the game. It was totally different. They'd come out 10 yards further up the pitch with much more intensity, high press, everyone getting stuck in. It looked like they got an absolute rollicking at half time, and it had worked to me. And it was loads better, absolutely loads better. You've got. I did raise an eyebrow earlier in the week, thinking, what must you think if you're Mike Fondop or Kurt Willoughby, if we go and sign a 20-year-old kid from Wigan's reserves who's barely played any league football and has come from Guiseley at a lower level than we are? You must be thinking, crying out loud. But I'll tell you what, they've done some research on him because he absolutely ran his nuts off. He was much more mobile than any striker we've got on our books. And I think that probably highlights a point, doesn't it? The harrying and the pressing and the running, just direct running at them. And he was a menace, for 70 minutes. Yeah, I can see why they signed him. It was loads better in the second half. But completely two different sides. The problem is that consistency in it. Can they do that week in, week out? You just no idea. You don't know what you're going to get from 1 minute to the next. But I tell you what I was buzzing with yesterday was because there were 2 goals in a couple of minutes. When the second one went, you want to see my lad, 6-year-old, get out of his seat, yes, like that, throwing his fists about, high-fiving strangers. I'm like, yes, I've got him. He's in. It was great, brilliant fun. Yeah, I loved it. It was a great away day. I've never been to Solihull before. It is literally like, some cobbled together sheds in it. It's absolute proper non-league ground,
Tez, do you have any recollection of yesterday?
Yeah, what seems to me is that Mellon can get a reaction out of the players, can't he? Like Andy said, the first half was really poor. But whatever he says whatever he said at half time, whether he give him a rollicking or whether he's just thrown out a few little pointers. Let's play a little bit further up the field, like Andy said, and it'll come together. Whatever he's done, he seems to be getting a reaction because is that about the second time we've come out and played poor in the first half, really poor, but been a loads better second half. I think so. He seems he can get a reaction out of the players, which is a start. I personally don't think we're good enough to get in the playoffs. I don't think we will, which is I know it's a bit morbid, a bit like sort of demoralising, really. But yeah, I think we'll finish 10th or 11th. Yesterday was a good day. 3-2. Well, it should have been 3-1, really, but that was a pen all day, wasn't it, Andy? Did you see it? Could you see it from where you were sat? Yeah, it looked like it from where we was. Yeah, it was a penalty all day long. So 3-2, but we'll take 3 points anywhere we go. Standard.
We seem to have been in 10th for weeks, don't we?
Yeah, 10th is the new 17th, isn't it?
Yeah, we've just not shifted, have we? It's frustrating because, like, when you look at the form, and I listened to Alan's interview with Mickey, and I loved how it started. Can you sum that up? And he said, yeah, in the first half we were rubbish, and it was like, right, that's all you need to know. And and then he went on to give it a bit more depth, and then he went on to explain about how. He said we've got loads of centre halves, so we need to use them. They changed the shape, presumably went 3-5-2 then in the second half, and
it's 3-5-2 from the off.
Was it?
Yeah,
all right, okay.
Yeah, it was.
Right. But it didn't work in the first half, but it did in the second, presumably.
But the problem in the first half is we were static, So the ball kept coming across the back three. So you Raglan, Hogan, and Hobson, and they're just playing long balls, like or McGahey, like in a pivot in front of them. They're just playing long balls, 40-yard balls over the top of Kitchen, over the top of Sutton, into the channels for people, and it wasn't really going anywhere. In the second half, we just played 10 yards further up the pitch, and so what you had was Sheeran and Lundstrom just pressing that, getting stuck in and pushing, and then making them lose the ball, and then picking them off, and then going again. And we had none of that in the first half. That was the difference. He just made them play further up the pitch and said run around a bit.
Yeah, we said it before with Sharon, though, haven't we? He is better higher up the pitch than he is sitting back. He's and those two finishes yesterday were both absolute quality. He's not scored a tap in for us, has he? When he scores, he scores great goals, really good finishes. He can strike a ball. It was good, but he does need to be playing on the front foot, doesn't he? And like Mellon said it in the interview that giving McGarry that position to hold, and then having Lundstrom and Sharon pushing up and supporting the forwards and overloading teams at that end of the pitch. It's like you said, though, we can't manage it over 45 minutes, over 90 minutes if it's going to be as black and white as that, where we've got 45 minutes good, 45 minutes bad. Obviously, we only went in 1-0, so there was that. I mean, if we'd have gone in maybe 2 or 3 down at half time, it would have been a different story. But they've got to get that consistency. But looking at the form, 3 wins, a draw, and a defeat in the last 4 league games. It's you compare that to the other teams in and around us in the division. It's pretty good. But it's stupid results like that. That Ebbsfleet defeat at home, like 4-1, and then obviously the performance against Mikulov, which I guess gives doubts to people like Tez, who think that we're not going to have that little bit extra just to kick on. But we have gained a bit of ground there now today on Solihull, who are on a bad run of form, by the way. They've lost 4 of the last 5 now, and then we've got Gateshead coming up, so we can gain a bit of ground on them. But it's going to be a tough one next Saturday.
Yeah, we're going to have to string some back-to-back wins together, and then I think we can obviously what one win would see is in the playoffs now, and actually 4th and 5th look eminently catchable, which gives you at least 1 home game if you're in those playoffs. So there's no reason why we can't. And we're definitely going to need to sign some more players, though. I think we desperately need, if we're going to play 3-5-2, we need a proper right wing back. Sutton did all right yesterday. Great header to set up Josh Stone's equalise. Who made it 1-1. I thought their goal, if you watched it from when it looked for me, people were having a go at the static centre halves, which I guess is a fair point. I thought the keeper should have come out and claimed it, or he could have at least made an effort. He just stood statically on his line, so we could have avoided that as well. But I think we're going to need. I'd still like it to see a proper centre midfielder who can put his foot on the ball and pass it around, because McGarry is a centre half doing a centre midfield's job, where he just sits as a screen in front of the back three. He isn't really going to be the player who's playing nice little triangles, 1-2s, getting around people. That isn't his game. I still think we need a right wing back if we're going to play that formation, and a centre midfielder who can put his foot on the ball. And then who knows? We could definitely get in the playoffs from there. I think. It's definitely not over, but we're going to need more.
Is that all we need, Tez, to make a big difference? You think?
I think McGarry, is that his name? I think that role suits him. He does. I mean, I know what you mean. You're putting square pegs in round holes, aren't you? But he's a centre back in it. But yeah, I agree with that. We need a midfielder, 100%, a creative midfielder, definitely. I think Sharon's been loads better when he's not got Shelton at the side of him. He plays a lot better with Lundstrom, a lot better. Them goals yesterday were 2 absolute worldies. Good finishes, and he looks like a steady player. To be fair, I wouldn't say that he's the answer, but he's been doing all right. But so yeah, we do need a midfielder. We do need a right back. I'm not sure. I mean, I know what What do we do if Kitchen gets injured as well? Because I can't see another left back in the squad, barring Benny Couto, but he's on loan at Ashton United, is it? So
I guess he's going to have to come back into the squad, isn't he? I mean, they'll have to recall him or they'll have to bring somebody else in. But
yeah, it's just in some positions we just seem a little bit lightweight, don't we? A little bit threadbare, the squad, with 500 strikers and one left back.
I think what he needs to do now is he needs to stick on a formation, and it seems like it needs to be this formation because, like he said in his interview, and Gaz made the point on the phone and he, in the week, and Gaz has been saying this for weeks, if not months, that the 4-4-2 doesn't suit us. Like that extra body in midfield is needed. It's required. Look at us against Mickleover on Saturday, gone. With the 4-4-2 and Sharon and Gardner in midfield, got overrun all the time. So we do need to have bodies in midfield. And I think this system now, we've been saying it for ages, haven't we? What's our identity? How do we play? So from the takeaway from the interview yesterday was, get the ball, get up the pitch, press them, get the ball wide, get it in the box and deliver it to the strikers. And, and not just the strikers, have those midfield bodies coming up and overloading the box so that you're going to get shots away. And it seems to work today. So that's got to be. I don't want to be seeing this going away. Saturday against Gateshead, it's 4-4-2 again. You know what I mean? Let's start playing to our strengths and do it consistently, and hopefully try and get a good 70 or 80 minutes out of them rather than just getting a good 45.
Yeah. The issue I think probably with Sharon and Lundstrom yesterday when they're pressing higher up the pitch is. Lundstrom's the type of player that runs at players with ball at his feet, a bit like Stones did. So they can stretch the play a little bit, but you're still missing that person who's just controlling the tempo by passing the ball around. I think that's what's missing specifically. But I mean, Terry's point is right about being imbalanced. We were chatting to people at halftime yesterday, and they were sort of saying, does this is the recruitment department alongside a stats department necessary in non-league was in effect the debate that I was having. So, is that not like the thing that the Premier League do or the Championship or maybe down to League One? But when you're in the 5th division and you're trying to recruit players from tier 6 or whatever, is a stats department and a scouting department really required? Should you not just rely on Mickey Mellon to bring in whichever players he wants? And so you're having that debate. And I can see the argument in it on the one hand. But on the other hand, if all of those departments worked well together in a complementary fashion, I've got no issue with it. The problem is Steve Thompson and David Unsworth clearly didn't see eye to eye. So you had like two departments, that were rubbing up against each other all the time. And that's why you end up in this daft position where we've got 16 strikers, 14 centre halves, one left back, no centre midfielder who can pass the ball, and no right wing back. And that really is going to need addressing, isn't it? And
if the system that's in place has brought in somebody like Josh Stones, who, from all accounts, it is what we needed, and presumably the stats on him were that he's going to run and this is how he plays, and then that's obviously worked, hasn't it? You know what I mean? If that's because you plot, you say it's relatively obscure, but then again, most of the signings that you make at this level aren't they? It's not, for every James Norwood, there's umpteen players that you've never heard of coming from teams that you've never heard of potentially, and things like that.
But that's the point, isn't it? So if the scouting department with Steve Thompson and David Unsworth had have been, for the sake of argument, finding and highlighting players like Josh Stones and bringing him in from Guiseley, right? And then it's what Notts County did with poaching those players from Gateshead the year before they went up. If they'd have been doing that, then it'd been fine. But instead, we were recruiting, Alex Reid, Mark Shelton, players like that were okay, but weren't going to materially change us into all of a sudden a title challenging side.
I guess it's about thinking about where you're at the time, and there was probably a thought of players like Alex Reid and Mark Shelton have played that. Look at Alex Reid's goal scoring record for Solihull before he came to Latics. It looked like a good signing this, and he would played at Stockport, obviously, when they were doing well. Shelton, playing in the division above, got experience. You can understand why signings are made. Sometimes, for whatever reason, we don't always know why, things don't work. Mark Shelton's obviously not going to be at the club for much longer because he's not delivered. I hope that he goes off to find somewhere else and does really, really well. And whatever it is that's not work for him here, it doesn't affect him there. And and he goes on and he does well. Every single player that comes to Latties, I want to do well, and I wish them the very best every single time, without doubt. It just doesn't work out sometimes. So you'll always get some wrong. I think the problem is clearly over the last year, 18 months, it's not been done particularly well in terms of the balance and stuff. So I think there's obviously a lot of lessons learned. And now it's going to be interesting and hopefully quite exciting to start making some of the right signings and seeing people come in like this and having an impact and going, right, okay, things are working a bit better than they were. And I'm confident that that's going to be the case. And, if we can make a couple more of those signings before the end of the season, then, maybe I still think that the playoffs is definitely on. Having a good Christmas, coming back to it because we never do, but having a good Christmas period, coming out of that in the playoffs, I think will just be massive for everybody. It'll be massive for attendances, half season tickets, the atmosphere in the ground and in the camp. It's really important. I think if we get Christmas wrong, that could be the determining factor about whether we do make a playoff push or not. So it's quite a big few weeks coming up.
I thought it was a decent following from the away support yesterday. It's been near 600 of us. Week before Christmas, in 10th place. Not exactly, putting teams away every week. Still decent following. I don't know what was the total attendance yesterday. Does anyone know? There looked to be as many of us as there were them at times.
It looked decent. The following looked decent on the video because it's hard to tell, and the stands are so small that they fill up pretty easily, don't they? But yeah, was it a good atmosphere? What was it like in the crowd?
It was good, Terry. What do you think?
Yeah. It was. I thought he was all right. To be fair, there were no drum. I don't think was Ryan there yesterday. I don't think he was there. Was this? There was no drum, but other than that, I thought he was pretty good. Going back to the recruitment process, what you were saying, Andy, I think at this sort of level and this sort of standard, obviously there is a player in there, hence the reason they're a professional footballer. But to play well, it's mainly, or to get consistency, people have to be enjoying themselves. So with the stats department, I understand what people are saying. You can emphasise too much on. He runs 10 kilometres in a game. He does this. 90% of his passes, are completed, etc. I just think I'd concentrate more on getting a good team spirit. I'm not saying go and get Joe Bloggs off the street and play him in centre midfield. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, for players at this level to consistently play well, a lot of it is confidence based, and the freer they are to play, and the more they're enjoying it, etc. You will see an improvement in performances and a consistency of it. But like I said, on that in the same sort of respect, yeah, you can look at it, and you do look at it, but I wouldn't personally emphasise too much on statistics at this sort of standard. You're getting down towards sort of semi-pro level, aren't you? Where lads are going to work every day. So I'd concentrate more on team camaraderie, lads enjoying it. But obviously, like I said, you don't want to be buying anybody. So there is a place for it, but not. You sort of. You're picking peas out of shit, aren't you? Sort of, for want of a better term.
The example I gave yesterday was so Brentford bought James Tarkowski offers based on his stats, more or less, because he'd barely played many. He played a season or so. His stats, so they'd done all their work on him on the stats, and they'd assessed that he was going to be a really good player worth millions of pounds, and that's why they paid 350 grand we sold him for, as it was going rate at the time. Within 2 seasons, they'd sold him for 7 million to Burnley. So there has to be some sense in using the stats as a pathway to understanding the progression of a footballer. So there has to be that's all the successful teams to some degree have that system in place, and therefore it must work. I take the point that I think it's a reasonable one that plucking a League One player from another League One club using stats to estimate that his progression will take him onto another level may be more difficult if you're trying to pick players from Guiseley or Chester. I grant you that, but still having that sort of process in place and that theory and that practice now will see us well in the future. And so I think having it in place is a good thing, whether at this stage or not. You should probably lean into Mickey Mellon's experience more than the stats department, probably. But the issue before this is, and we know this, is that Steve Thompson was recommending players that David Unsworth didn't want, and David Unsworth was trying to bring players in that Steve Thompson didn't like. And presumably the stats department in the middle are just going, Jesus, trying to keep... It didn't. The 3 departments were dysfunctional. So... moving forward, we've got the club. Presumably, that's Darren Royal's gig. He's got to try and find a way of making it functional, so that in the future we're then trying to pick players out that we're picking up for relative peanuts and selling on for millions. Because that's the other thing, isn't it? When is the last time we sold a player for what you would think is big money? It's probably George Edmondson, isn't it, to Rangers for 700 grand or so. We don't. It looks like Rochdale got another one that someone's after. That a Premier League team's after. They seem to get one every 2 seasons, and it keeps them going. We haven't had that conveyor belt. So I've got no problem with the concept of it. Obviously, just the practice of it to date has not really worked that well.
Well, we need to. I mean, if you're going to introduce anything that you're going to introduce that's new, is going to have teething problems in it, and it's going to take. You need the personnel to be settled and understand each other and work together and all that. And obviously that's not happened insofar as David Unsworth and Steve Thompson are now both gone. So we're having to start again. The club internally will have learned from that and they'll be able to pass that on to the people that are now responsible for it. And I think very much, what we're seeing at Oldham is a club that is setting itself up to be an EFL club and not be a 4th division EFL club either. We want to be back in League One ASAP. That's the target, innit? And then from there, we'll see. So I think, we don't need dugouts that look like the Premier League standard, but we've got them. We've got the players' lounge. We've got the facility. They're creating this feel that is bigger than this division. So that because we want to be ready for where we should be, where we belong, which is definitely back in League One for starters. So I've got no problem with it, but like you say, it does all have to work, and that's everybody's intention. So, hopefully, I mean, things like stats, you might look at, I don't want to pick on Mark Shelton, but it's an obvious one insofar as if you looked at his stats, you might say he does all this running, X amount of his passes are completed, but if all those passes are sideways and backwards, it doesn't really, so there has to be more, the meat on the bones, when you talk about signing Tarkowski. They didn't do it off stats alone. They'd seen him play. They'd seen his movement. They'd seen his, his ability, his heading ability, and his passing ability, etc., etc. And they put it all together, don't they? So it's not one thing that makes the decisions. It's a collective thing.
That's right. And as Darren Royal explained that to us when he came on, just over a year ago, is you'd imagine the manager would say, "I need a right back. I'm going to play with a 3-5-2 system. I want a right wing back." The stats department might go and look at right wing backs within our addressable market, so in the area of the Northwest that are affordable, that would come to a 5th division team, find a dozen of them, and then use the stats to filter that down to 6, and then they send the scouts out to go and watch the 6 and do some quality control on them. And then they come back and say the scouts say these 2 are the best 2, and then maybe the manager then goes out and watches both those and chooses which one he wanted. But self-evidently, that wasn't working well enough, was it? Because previously, you might have had that process where Steve Thompson's scouts coming back and saying, here's your players, and David Unsworth didn't want them. He wanted this one over here that no one else liked. So and vice versa, So
if the three of us now, let's say the captain's the manager, right? And Andy, you're the stats man, and I'm the head of recruitment, right? So between the three of us, are we saying 3-5-2? Like for this season and maybe next season, like we're looking at what we've got and what we need. And I think we've said this on the podcast quite earlier. It'd be easier to recruit for a 3-5-2 because we've got the centre halves, all the centre halves we need. We've got, you with that three centre halves, and you play another sort of defensive midfielder, someone who is a centre half like McGarry in there. You've got that cover when you need it. I'm saying, what am I? I'm the head of recruitment, so I'm saying that's the system I think we should adopt. Do we all agree, or do we have to have a discussion? What do you think, manager? What does the manager think first and foremost? Tez, you're the manager.
Well, I thought 3-5-2 worked good second half yesterday. So yeah, I'd go with that. Absolutely. It just has to be coercive, doesn't it? Everybody has to agree on the play. What do the players want to play? I think that comes into a conversation with the manager as well. What system are they comfortable with? Some might not say 3-5-2. It comes down to sort of what the players are comfortable doing as well, in my opinion. Like Will Sutton at right back, you'd have to have a conversation with him. Do you want to play right back? He'd probably say no. He's just doing a job, isn't he? He's filling in and filling a position that we have nobody for. So, I mean, 3-5-2 worked well yesterday. Second half, I thought we looked sharp, but he'd go in the first half poor. So we're just very inconsistent, aren't we? That's
I think you can keep more. I think you can keep more of our existing squad happy with that system because you can play Hobson, Raglan, Will Sutton. You can play three of those five at least in that position at centre half. But we do need to bring in cover for Kitchen, and we need to bring in somebody to play down that right hand side. But other than that, you could argue that if everybody else is on their game, we've got a decent enough first team to go out and win games like they've won 3 of the last 5. So, what do you think, Andy? How would you be? What would your stats be telling you?
Well, I was about to say, if I'm the stats department in this analogy, then I'm just going to bury my head in a spreadsheet over here, and I'll tell you how our players are performing or underperforming. I'll have a look at the opposition players for you before we play them, and I'll mine any position you want me to recruit for. But if I'm the stats department, it's not really it's not really up to me to decide what formation we play. That's
well, you could. But one of the things you could do is you could look at how we performed, in various formations over the season. And things like that, and look at individual players and say, well, this player seems to perform better in this position. So, all that data, it all comes into force if you use that information properly, and I'm sure they are doing, and to build up this picture. I still think that position, that formation needs the least amount of recruitment for this squad, which means we've got to spend the least amount of money and bring the least amount of players in. And we've already, discussed the fact that we've got a surplus of players in this squad, so we can't afford to be sort of rebuilding it completely this season. So we do need to make relatively fine-tuned adjustments in order to get the most out of it and keep that playoff dream alive. Not to mention the trip to Wembley and the FA Trophy.
Hendon. Oh dear. We've got to be able to put them to bed, surely.
We said the same about Michelova and Peterborough Sports, didn't we? Chester, and struggled against them all. So,
well, at least Chester are a proper football club, right? The other 3 are literally bus stops. I mean, it's absolutely mental. We should really be putting them away.
In comparison to that, Andy, yesterday I was having a conversation with a couple of Solihull fans in a pub just round the corner from the ground, and he made me and my mate laugh. Like they were He said, "So, do you support Man United as well then?" I said, "No, I don't." So he says to my mate, he says, "Do you support them Man United then as well?" I was like, "No, they were Birmingham fans, but that's like the small club that they live near, so they support Solihull as well." And that seemed to be a trending theme with other Solihull fans as well. Birmingham is the big club that they support in the Championship, but they go and watch Solihull as well. He couldn't comprehend that we didn't support a Premiership club. They couldn't get their head around it.
I saw lots of people wandering around with hats on of other teams. Yeah, I saw a couple of Man United hats in the Solihull end, not in ours.
Yeah,
there's quite a few people doing that. And it's what's interesting as well is do you remember they don't do it on Five Live Sports Report? You remember right? So they don't do that anymore, which I kind of, when I was driving back to London yesterday, I kind of missed because got my lads in the car. But anyway, they're reading the scores out, and I turned it up when it got to National League. So my lad's in the back, and you can hear Solihull 2, Oldham 3, and he goes, "Yeah!" in the back line. I'm like, "Yes, I've got him. I'm definitely getting it. I'm gonna hook him." But his mates at school, bearing in mind he goes to school in West London, his mates at school are a couple of Brentford fans, a couple of Chelsea fans, and then there's Liverpool and Man City fans, right? So full kitted Man City, Liverpool, living in West London, and he's an Oldham fan. And he hasn't worked out yet that we are, miles away from all these. He just thinks that he's like, they're pretty much similar. It's just going to be a hard conversation when he does work it out. But I keep pointing out to him, like that was his 17th game he's been to yesterday. So I was trained to him. You've been to 17 live games. Your mate, who's a City fan, has been to none. Like, you've been there. He's like, "Yeah, I got games done." I'm like, there's got to be. I know I'm trying to enforce my support of my club onto him, but there's got to be something in that somewhere, aren't there? Like you go in and you feel like you're involved, and he's literally getting up and cheering, and I'm like, I'm going to get him.
I mean, I had the similar conversation with a taxi driver yesterday. Tez, I was driving into town, getting a lift into town, went past the Etihad, so we were talking about football. City were at home, and I said, "Oh, I'm an Oldham fan," and so I said I would have been going today, but for this, and he said, "Well, do you support a big club as well, like Liverpool or something?" I was like, "No, Oldham Athletic is a proper football club. It's not. It's like Solihull Moors or any of these other teams, which you can understand that kind of that because they're played at an even lower level than where they're at now and stuff like that. And obviously, a hardcore, genuine fan base of clubs that size is small." It's a small number of people who are Solihull Moors fans, and that's it. They probably do have a broader interest in bigger local clubs, but it's like no, Oldham's a proper football club. Like it's a proper town of a large town with a proper historic football club, and our fans support Oldham and they don't support anybody else. And I guess that's kind of like like why with teams like Notts County and Wrexham and stuff like that have been down at this league and Chesterfield, that our fan bases are just so much bigger. And so much more potential because of our history and our heritage. It's just the problem with our history is now it's quite a long bloody time ago, and we really need to have something else. Trying to explain to people that you support the least successful football club over the last 30 years in English football, and why that's a good thing, and why you're happy about that. You can see the look of perplexion on people's faces, can't you? It's a hard sell to someone like your kid, Andy, or our kid's kid, and all the kids. It's not an easy sell, is it? It's not
an easy sell. But one of the things that makes it easier is when they're amongst other Latics fans, and you can see older generation of fans, and they make a fuss of them, and they ruffle their hair and they say hello and stuff. Makes them feel involved. So he feels part of a community, So I'm convinced I'm going to get him. He's going to be. Eventually, he's going to have his own drum or something. Should we do a slightly early Latics Mind?
Yeah.
Because I know Tezza. This is the reason Terry requested to come on the pod, even though he's still in bed with his shirt off. He requested to come on a pod because he fancied his chances at Latics Mind. Is that right, Tezza?
That's a lie. Has Dave told you that? It would be.
Dave told me that. Dave said, "Get Terry on. He thinks he'll do well at Latics Mind."
I won't do well. I'm up and down. I try and play it every week, obviously listening. Some weeks I do okay, and other weeks, well, most weeks I do absolutely terrible. I'll be happy if I get one.
Well, good luck. It's good to see that you're in a very, very sharp, you're very alert, very awake. So that can only help.
I'm just about coming round now. I can't remember any conversation with that.
Brilliant. Right, good luck, Tez.
Who beat Latics 3-1 on the opening day of the 2003-2004 season?
Wrexham.
Wrong, it was Brighton. Which goalkeeper signed for Latics from Accrington in the summer of 2011?
Dean Bazanis.
Alex Sisak. Who scored a late own goal to break Latics' heart at Anfield in 1993?
Dennis Irwin.
Andy Barlow. Whose squad number was number 9 in the 21-22 season, our last number 9 in league football?
Sam Surridge.
Hallam Hope. Latics reached the FA Cup semi-final in 1990. How many goals in total did they score in that cup run?
10.
16. Which striker did Latics sign from Luton on deadline day in 2004?
Not a clue, pass.
Who was the only defender to score for Latics in the Littlewoods Cup run of 1989-90?
Pass.
Who scored Latics' last home goal in the Premier League?
Andy Barlow.
Darren Beckford. How many times did Latics and Leeds play each other in 1986-87?
4.
6. Who knocked Latics out of the League Cup in 1993 and 1995?
Nottingham Forest.
Tranmere Rovers. Oh dear. Right.
I had no chance there. No chance.
Well, let's go through. You had 2 passes, didn't you? I think.
Yeah.
Which striker did Latics sign from Luton on deadline day 2004? It was Dean Crowe. And who was the only defender to score for Latics in the Littlewoods Cup run of 89-90, Matt?
Well, in my head, I said down at Dennis Irwin.
No, it was Earl Barrett against West Ham in the semi.
Oh, yeah. Well, if it's made you feel any better, Tez, I got none then in that case as well.
Tough questions, and you stitched me up.
Blame Paul Prendergast. That's where they come from.
Blame Dave Bradley stitched me up.
Blame everything on Dave. They're only easy if you know the answer.
That is true.
Well, look, the main thing today, Tez, is that when Andy rang you and you were still asleep and it woke you up, you sorted yourself out, you shook yourself down, said, "No, I'm ready." Andy's like, "Do you need some time?" No. So, you battled on. And so did I. And we got a podcast out. That's the main thing. So I think we all deserve a pat on the back.
Yeah, I'm about to go and try and get myself out of the doghouse now as well.
All right, well, good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice one. Right, so let's just see, can Latics make it back-to-back wins and beat Gateshead and go into Christmas in the playoffs? What do you think, Andy?
I think Gateshead will be a different kettle of fish. I think we'll draw I'm hopeful against Hartlepool because they're not on a decent run of form, and we've got them back to back, haven't we? So if we picked up 7 points out of the next 3 games, you'd be happy, wouldn't you? Or if you picked up 5 points out of the next 3 games, also not too bad.
Tez Gateshead have went off the back of a three straight wins. They drew and they lost the last game, so they've not won in a couple of games. What do you reckon?
I'm going to be quite positive here and say that we'll sneak a 2-1 win.
We've not beaten them yet, have we? In how many attempts? We're due one, aren't we?
I don't know, 5 or 6, is it?
So, it's too many because we played them in the FA Trophy, didn't we, as well? So we were due a win against Gateshead. We can't be having Gateshead as our bogey team. Latics sneak into the playoffs just before Christmas.
It'll do for me.
You heard it here first. Thanks for joining us, lads. Have a good day. See you later. Thank you for listening to the Boundary Park Alert System, a QPod production hosted and produced weekly by Matt Dean, Andy Halliwell and Dave Bradley. QPod is Oldham's only dedicated podcast production company, and if you'd like to learn more about how podcasting can help take your brand to the next level, visit kupod.co.uk. A huge thank you goes to all those people who subscribe to the podcast on Spotify. We really appreciate you all. Please visit oafcpodcast.co.uk and click Be a Supporter or find the link in the show notes if you'd like to help us fund the show. It's only $2.99 per month to subscribe, but if you'd rather make a one-off donation, please visit buymeacoffee.com/OAFC podcast or click the link on our website. Don't miss the Latics football phone-in every Wednesday live from 8:30pm. Please visit youtube.com/@OAFC podcast and do hit subscribe while you are there. You can also follow and interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok @OAFC podcast. Big thanks go to Eileen Finnegan for writing our excellent weekly blog, which we encourage you to read on our website every Saturday morning, and also to Paul Prendergast for providing us with all the Latics Mind questions. The title music for the show is by Manchester DJ and producer Starion, and for more information visit bandcamp.com/Red Laser Records. If you'd like to be a guest or contribute to the show, we would love to hear from you. Until then, see you next time.